compares to other languages. So, the main topic of today, ASL versus PSE. Also, real quick, everybody can see me fine. Just making sure like nobody's having any problems. We're good. We're good. Good. Stream's up and running. We're good. Fantastic. Cool. All right. So, is there anyone in here who doesn't know what ASL and PSE is? Is anybody who doesn't know, is not familiar with that concept? Okay. So, brief, quick little explanation. So, ASL is American Sign Language. Itself is a language. It has all the characteristics and qualifications required to be labeled as a language. It has its own grammar structure, it has its own rules, it has its own culture, it has a group of people who use it, it has all the things. PSE is Pidgin, Pidgin, signed English. This is not a language. It is a coding system. I'm trying to spell all these like technical words. It is a coding system, so it itself is not a language. It is taking something that is already a language, English, and manually coding it, which means signing it. But it stays in English order, it stays in English grammar, it stays with English signs. It is itself not a language, it is a bridge connection language. There's like different words for it. Basically, it just means that it is English on your hands. So when you're trying to learn ASL, a lot of people start off with PSE because that's the easiest, most accessible way for them to start learning. They're taking the English that they already know, or sometimes other languages, but most of the time English, and they are simply signing exactly what they would say. Kind of like I'm doing right now, honestly. Most of my signs are exactly what I'm saying. There's not any ASL grammar in it, though I'm throwing in some because it's just habit for me. But it is very much English word order with signs. That's it. ASL has its own grammar, its own structure. And one of the big things that I've noticed so many times with new students is they struggle, they start signing, and then even if they learn the actual ASL grammar structure of subject, verb, object, whatever it is that like DM teaches, the actual ASL grammar structure, a lot of people still have one big problem: conceptual signs. So I've noticed many times students will sign not on purpose, but like incorrectly, because they're using a word that, yes, for English, that word means that idea, but in sign it doesn't. The most easily readily available example that came to mind for me is have. How do you guys sign this word? Okay. Most of you have signed this. Why did nobody sign this?
Context.
I have to go to the store.
I need to go to the store. Yeah.
Again, it is a concept. This is not possession. This is not having a store. This is not I physically own a store. This is a necessity. So you do not sign I have to go to the store. You say I have to go to the store. Now this is possession. I have 2 pets. So whenever you guys are out there learning your words, especially when you're using Bob's World, which I love, a lot of things I've noticed is people who are learning their signs will learn one word and use it for any use of that word ever. But they're not paying attention to what the actual concept behind it is. So have has multiple meanings. It has multiple signs. You do not use have for a necessity. How do you guys sign this? Love, love. Okay. So, and Gamma's already got me because this is with the example I used yesterday, I think, with him. Her, sorry. Um, so, love, whenever you sign it this way with your arms crossed, typically means you love a person. Like, I love my mom. I love my mom. I love my brother. I love you guys. I love a person. But what if I wanted to say, I love a game? Am I still going to love it? Am I still going to embrace it and hold it and want to squeeze it? So we use a specific sign. Oh, wait. Did not know I could write at a distance. This is so cool. Okay. All right. So this is the name of this specific sign, kiss fist. So you start with your fist, you put it to your lips, kiss it going forward. So this means this is a specific thing. I love it. I love VRChat. I love video games. I love that book. This is for a thing. Because I'm not going to actually like go to the video game and grab it and hold it and say, I missed you so much and start crying. I mean, I might if it's a video game I haven't played in so long. But, so love a person, love a thing. But you still use the same word in English. You still say love. All right. Here, how do I erase this? Where is the eraser button? Cool. All right. How do you sign this word? Okay, okay. All right. So in this sentence, you would probably be right. I said to my friend, his shoes are fancy. I said something. I actually physically said something, told it to another person. Well, with that, that's all that was said. This, you would use the sign that most people would associate with the word comment or mention. I didn't actually tell somebody something. There's no other person in this concept. It's just that's all that was said. That's all that was mentioned. That's all that would have been captioned on a TV. So again, and there are so many of these, and me trying to quickly write them down, I could not. So there's a lot of these that I'm not going to be able to teach right now. But it's one thing I wanted to make sure I put into your new student minds about whenever you are learning sign to be trying to actually analyze and figure out what concept that sign is talking about and be able to apply it to the correct situation. Another thing that I've noticed, and this isn't something I've noticed that's been wrong, but I've noticed not a lot of students have noticed it. I also just popped up with, hey, that's another sign for have. I have noticed it. I've already noticed it. Okay. Interesting, just popped up. I'll add it on my list next time I teach this. Okay. So, nouns versus verbs, which I just realized I can't sign correctly in VR. So, noun, the sign in real life, noun is with an N. You go across your chin. And then verb is with a V going across your chin. I just realized I can't do that in VR. Okay. So, when you have a noun or a verb in sign, many times there's one specific rule that applies to them. For example, how do you sign this? Three's already got it. Sit, right? How do you sign chair? Two times. So this is a rule that is very common with sign with ASL. When it is something that is a common enough sign, like I have a couple other examples. 1 time is the verb. 2 times is the noun. So sit, chair. It's the same motion, same hand shapes. It's just how many times do you do it. 1 time is a command, is a verb. 2 times is a noun. So I have both open and close the door, the window. So again, if I have open the door or close the door, open the window or close the window is 1 time. It is an action. Open it, close it, open it, close it. But if I'm talking about the actual thing, 2 times. Another little tidbit I've noticed, other people haven't noticed, again, continuing actions. So whenever you sign, you can add in a temporal aspect in your sign in how you sign something. You don't have to expand with words, it's how you sign it. For example, go. We went 1 time, right? Go. Now, if I am going again and again and again, I can just keep going. Like going, 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 right? So sometimes you can just repeat the sign. But if I'm writing 1 time, but if I'm writing a novel, I'm writing multiple times. It typically goes in a circle. Sometimes it'll just be like back and forth, sometimes it'll be side to side. Most of the time, it's a circle. So whenever you add that circle motion, yes, wonder, wondering, you keep going forever, talking, talking. I'm trying to come up with examples. It doesn't help that I'm also trying to teach after I worked all day, interpreting all day, so my brain is gone. Yeah, so wait, waiting, that is the perfect example. So wait, right? But if I'm waiting forever, it goes in a circle. And it's adding this temporal aspect with your sign without having to say, I waited on hold for 10 hours. Just, oh God, waiting a long time. But it's 1 sign. All right. So again, this is my super short sub lesson that I just came up with as fast as I could. So whenever I plan to actually have the full class, I will have multiple other examples, but these are the 3 concepts I wanted to hit on about conceptual signs, noun versus verb, continuing action. I ask that whenever you guys are out learning your signs, practicing your signs, to be conscious about those and try and think about how you are signing, how you are learning, because if you are just memorizing the words, you're not matching the language. ASL has so much fun things you can do whenever you play with the language, but you have to get there by learning the actual language, not using PSE where it is English just manually coded. Don't get me wrong. PSE works fine if you're a hearing person and another hearing person and you both can sign. It works so well. I use it all the time. I love it whenever I'm going out and hanging out with other people who know sign and I'm in a loud place. Oh my God, I don't have to yell. I don't have to raise my voice, nothing. I can have clear communication with them using PSE. But whenever you're learning ASL, you need to actually be learning ASL. And these are just some tips I wanted to throw out, again, as a quick little sub lesson. Now, because time, like, I don't have anything else, I will happily open it up to any questions about whatever. Yes, Cheesy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can talk about that real quick. No problem. Okay, so Shizi asked me about facial expressions and body language. So that is another thing that I have had long discussions with some deaf people who I've met in real life from VRChat. That like things that VR is missing and doesn't have. And even with face tracking, you are still missing so much of the face. There is so many things you can do in real life with your face to completely change the meanings of signs. I personally, I'm a very sarcastic person. I love making sarcastic comments and jokes. In VR, I really kind of have to up my body language to show my sarcasm. In real life, I can do it very, very subtly just because of how I sign something on my face. Like, just the slightest adjustment will change your meaning. Whenever you guys are here learning in VR, and you're learning from our teachers, you're learning from the sign avatar in Bob's world, you are missing those facial expressions. So I will actually, on my actual lesson, I'm going to add in a whole thing about facial expressions because that's a good idea. One thing I can throw out real quick, because it's another little like, oh, this is a little tip about ASL. So, give me that. Give me a blank. There we go. Okay. Okay. So, it's one thing that kind of naturally develops as you sign in real life with other deaf people, fluent people, whatever. But it's one thing that I haven't noticed anybody teach in VR. So here you go. Here's your little tidbit. Your eyebrows determine what kind of answer you're looking for when you ask a question. So if I ask you a question and I just say, oh, pets, like you have pets, and I have my eyebrows up, that means I'm just asking a yes no question. Oh, you have pets? I just want to know yes, you have them, or no, you don't have them. That's it. That is all the information I'm looking for with my eyebrows up. If I ask the exact same question, oh, you have pets with eyebrows down, I'm expecting you to tell me what kind of pets, what their names are, how old they are, what color. I want more information. The actual sign that I said does not change. It's all in your eyebrows. If they are up, I want yes, no answer. That's it. If I want more information, I'm going to have eyebrows down. That is one thing that I've noticed with real life students whenever they are learning and trying to practice these eyebrows is at the very beginning, you have to actually be conscious about it and think about it. After a while, it's going to become so natural that you're just not even going to realize you're doing it anymore. Another thing about eyebrows, we're just leading. I'm going to rant. If anybody needs to stop me, tell me. But I'm going to rant because you guys let me have the podium. So that is completely spelled wrong. Cool. I'm not even gonna fix it. Okay, there we go. All right. So I'm sure many of you are already aware, especially if you've gone to DM's classes where they talk about how ASL structure mostly can be defined as topic comment. So I set up what I'm talking about and then I talk about it. So your topic, whatever you're talking about, whenever you are signing in real life, your eyebrows go up. Your eyebrows go up at the beginning of the sentence. I say what I'm talking about, and then eyebrows go back down, and then I say the rest of the sentence. While my eyebrows are up, that is establishing this is what I'm talking about, because I can talk about Like I can have a simple sentence of the ball is red, and my eyebrows would go up. Ball, eyebrows down, red. I can also have a very complicated sentence. Eyebrows up. The way that Chris spoke to me the other day whenever I confronted him about his shoes, and then he said he didn't like the fact that I was commenting about his shoes, eyebrows down, was mean. Second your eyebrows go up, you are establishing that this is what we're talking about. Eyebrows go down, and you can actually talk about it. So again, it is another thing that is missing from VRChat. We don't have the ability. Okay, with face tracking, I think you could possibly, if you really exaggerated it, have your eyes open and close, but it's still not enough. Really, your eyebrows, there's a constant joke about like, oh, you're a good student, it's because your eyebrow game is on point. Your eyebrows really can affect your sign, because whenever you're signing and you're talking to a deaf person, they can't hear your tone of voice. They can't tell if you're mad, upset, happy, excited. They can't get that from your voice, but they get it from your face. That is how deaf people show their tone, is through facial expressions. You can sign angrily too. You can sign excitedly too, but it is so much in the face. So facial expressions are very important. I will be adding that on my actual like full length lesson that I'm trying to develop, because that is very important. Okay. Oh, and to like add with that, yes. So when you're in VR, you have to compensate with, like, for example, like whenever we're asking a question in VR, we can't raise our eyebrows and lower our eyebrows. So what do? We tilt our head. It means I'm asking you a question. Now, when I do that, can I really identify, am I asking you a question with a yes no answer, or am I asking you a question for more information? You can't really do that. So you can say, hey, I've got a question for you, but that's it. Real life, it's all in the eyebrows. You also have to up your body language, because again, you can't show it on your face, but you can show it on your body and how you move, especially if you have full body tracking. You can add in so much more depth of meaning with your body. Sign language is not just about the hands. Okay. Any other questions you want me to rant about? Yes, 3. Oh gosh. Sorry, spell that again. You were too far away. Okay. So 3 asked me about idioms. So are you asking about English idioms or ASL idioms, or how to like translate them, or what? Okay. So ASL idioms. So is there anybody who isn't aware what an idiom is? Do I need to explain that? Okay. So in English, an idiom is... This is kind of funny because this is literally what I was working with my deaf students about like 2 days ago. Oh god, that's an awful S. All right. So a very common English idiom is "it's raining cats and dogs." And whenever it popped up in our lesson that we were doing with the deaf kids, literally like 2 days ago, Wednesday, maybe Tuesday, I don't know, doesn't matter. That was like actually the example of the first example. And one student was like, "It's raining on the cats and the dogs?" I'm like, no, read it again. It's raining cats and dogs. What does that mean? Like they were able to like start figuring it out, like analyzing it, and they said, does that mean like actual cats and dogs are falling from the sky? No, that is not what it means. This is an idiom that means it is just raining really, really heavily outside. So idioms are just some sort of expression that has a completely different meaning. It has a set meaning that you have to know it to know it. There's no real way to explain how cats and dogs means it's raining heavily outside. It's just an expression that's been around. I'm sure whoever invented it was like, oh yeah, I know why, because it had a little whatever. But today, nobody knows. Nobody, I mean, people probably do, but nobody really knows. You just know, oh, raining cats and dogs means it's raining a lot. Interpreting English idioms into ASL is difficult because you have to know what the idiom means in order to interpret it. But ASL itself is a language, it has its own idioms. So, one of which we've already used in the lesson today. So, kiss fist, that's an idiom. That is an ASL idiom. It means I love that thing so much. But I sign kiss fist, that's what you write whenever you write it. Kiss fist, that's what it's called, but it doesn't mean actually you're like kissing your fist and that's what you're talking about. No, it just means I love that thing. Another very common ASL idiom that I use with my students all the time. Again, sorry, I just got done with work. Like I spent 8 hours with these kids every day. Like I'm currently thinking about my kids because that's what I do for a living. Let's see.
You're fine.
All right, train gone. Sorry. Anybody seen this before? Like I said, this is a very, very common saying. Train gone, sorry. English actually has a very, very close equivalent of you missed the boat. So this really just means like if I'm having a conversation with somebody and somebody else comes up and they missed it and like we're already talking, they're like, what are we talking about? I'm sorry, train gone, sorry. Like you missed it, too late. I use it with my students when they're not paying attention, and then all of a sudden they realize, oh, we're doing something. What are they talking about? I'm like, sorry, train gone, sorry. You weren't paying attention? Sorry, too bad. I'm a nice person. I help them get caught up, but I also make them realize they need to pay attention in class. So I just tell them, sorry, you missed it. And I use that expression all the time. Train gone, sorry. So whenever I sign it, I typically sign train gone. I have seen train gone, but I typically sign just the train is gone. Sorry. But again, that does not actually mean there was a train, it is gone, I am so sorry. It means you missed what we were talking about, it's too late, sorry, too bad. There is another one. I don't know if this is the actual... like what it would be called. So fish swallow. And again, that's not even what you signed. You're not saying fish swallow, but this is the sign. So you put your hand out in front of you, you have a 1D finger, and it starts above and then goes down as if it's like going down your throat. Fish swallow. This means this person is very like gullible, very easy to trick. They're just like, whatever you're telling them, they're like, oh yeah, totally, totally going on with it. They do not think that you're lying to them at all, even though I'm totally just messing with them. It is, again, signed fish swallow, which I don't know where the fish is, but this is a common ASL idiom. It is a phrase that does not mean what it says. It has a different meaning that you have to know it to know it. Trying to think of some others. My mind is going blank. Exaggerate?
Blabbermouth.
Oh, blabbermouth.
Taking a long time.
I mean, that's not really an idiom. Like, that's an expression, but that's not really an idiom. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I would have to get back with you on that. There's more. It's just, I can't think of any right now. But, so, again, going back to the fact that ASL is its own language, it is not just English on the hands, which is PSE. It is an actual language. It has its own idioms. It has its own, like, deep culture. It has its own everything, just like any spoken language. So yes, there are ASL idioms. If you forced me to, I could make an entire lesson about it, and I would have to do research, and I could do that, I guess. Okay. All right. You don't get a vote. Okay. Anything else you would like me to rant about? Yes,
Well-
Heckler. Sorry, they have hands up everything. Yes. How do I compare things? Like, just how do I compare things? Okay. I mean, so... Okay, sorry, hold on. You're here. Can you come up here? You're too far away. Your avatar's too far. Okay. Say again. Uh-huh. Like the word than. How do I compare things? Okay, so... Okay. So the actual sign for than, like when you're comparing things, is than. You kind of like slap your hand. Like this has more than this. This has less than this. This is more accessible than that. Typically, whenever you're doing actual ASL, though, it is a completely different. You don't even sign the word than. I use than whenever I'm in math class and we're talking about like greater than or less than. But even then, I still have a different way. So typically, whenever you're setting up in proper ASL, is you are going to use it's called indexing, which is another concept I could go totally on about. So when you have ASL, typically there's the rule of 3 for indexing, and that is I can establish 3 separate objects and keep them there. And then I can just refer to them at any time just by pointing. So I can talk about, I was hanging out with, it was me, my mom, my brother, and my other brother, because I have 2 brothers. And then mom said, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then my brother was complaining about da-da-da-da-da-da. So I have set them up as, this is my mom, this is my middle brother, this is my littlest brother. And then whenever I'm comparing them, I can say this is like for an I'm trying to think of an example. So my mom is kind of short. My brothers, they're both very tall. They take after my dad. I do not. I take after mom in that. So mom, short, brothers, tall. I'm going to kind of like establish this as my baseline and then do this in comparison. I can also say, like, so yesterday and today, oh, today was hot. Like, or, you know, oh, talking about, like, again, I'll raise my eyebrows and talk about the temperature outside, heat, yesterday, today's worse. It's a whole, I'm establishing this topic of yesterday, the temperature, the heat was really, really bad, bring my eyebrows down, today is worse. I'm comparing it. I've established this, and then I'm making some sort of direct correlation with my next topic. I hope that is clear as mud for everybody. That is kind of one of those weird ones I'm trying to explain, but I don't know if I'm doing the best job at it. But hopefully that at least mostly answers your question. Dragon Riders, I know you also had your hand up.
Yes, correctly. I
Post.
was more curious about how do I know if sources are like legit about like ASL teaching and what are not.
So typically you need to make sure that the person you're learning from is a deaf person who grew up using the language. That is the best option you have. It's any language you learn. Anyone at all. If you are trying to actually learn a language, like for example, if I'm going to learn Japanese, if I go to somebody who was born and raised here in America, learned Japanese for like 1 year, kind of like on their free time, and then is now trying to teach other people, I could get some information for them that's actually legitimate, but chances are I'm going to get a lot of wrong things. They're not going to fully understand the like nuances about the language. They're not going to be able to have a class like this where they talk about, hey, you know, noun versus verb, conceptual signs, because they don't know it yet. They haven't been in it. I've been signing for more than 10 years. Like, I've been signing almost 10 years professionally. So that is like one of the only reasons I feel confident to speak as a hearing person. If you can find a deaf person who grew up using the language, they are your best bet because they know the language intrinsically. They are a like native user of the language. So when you're trying to find sources, try and find them from actual deaf people who use that language. If it's ASL, obviously ASL. If it's BSL, find a BSL person. Your next bet are people who are like professional teachers because obviously they have gone through some sort of program to say they know what they're talking about and they have the ability to impart those skills. You go down the list of like, oh, you can use people like me, like who are interpreters. You can talk about people who are like have been signing since birth, but they're hearing like Coda Pop because he's himself a Coda, and like his dad's deaf. His mom is an interpreter as well, so he like grew up in a very like correct signing household. You know, there's lots of different stages of quality. And there's been a negative stigma with helping hands that's been around about
Yeah, I heard that
how
too.
we are kind of like rude to hearing people trying to teach. It's not about hearing people trying to teach. It's the fact that we have seen so many people who learn for like 6 months and then try and teach their own classes and try and teach, and they are just teaching wrong. Like whenever we are teaching our classes, we try and say at the beginning of classes, I know like the classes I go to, like Jenny and like Crow, will say something about like, this is my regional sign, because especially with America, there are so many different regional signs that like it's honestly one thing I love whenever I get to meet people from around the country is like I'll start asking, how do you sign this? How do you sign this? Their signs are not wrong. My signs are not wrong. It is a regional sign. There are different signs. But whenever I see somebody who has like only been learning for 6 months on their free time and then they're trying to teach, they are like objectively wrong many times. And we as helping hands, we don't want that kind of teacher. We want access for the deaf community. We want you to actually learn the sign language. So we are really kind of strict about our teachers and want to make sure that we have good qualified teachers for us. So when you do see your friends and when you're hanging out with your friends and you're like, oh my God, I just learned a cool new sign. Let me show you. That is perfectly fine. We're 100% okay with that. We will never say anything bad about that. It's if you have a hearing person trying to teach as a voice of authority who should not be a voice of authority on a language that they've only been using for like 6 months or however long it is. That's the kind of source you want to stay away from. But again, and in my like freshman orientation, which I haven't done in so long because just life got busy and I want to get back to it again, I have like a whole thing about teaching versus collaborative learning. And like collaborative learning is helping your friends, especially if you've got like a friend who is like a VRChat person, but they're not in helping hands and you want to get them involved. You're not probably going to be able to convince them to be like, hey, join the Helping Hands Discord server and come to classes and learn sign. You're going to have to start very basic with like, oh, they noticed you signing, and you're going to be like, hey, let me show you, let's go to Bob's World, let me show you this cool world, and let's look at the board, and then, you know, I can teach you, like, make sure you're doing your ABCs right and that kind of stuff. Getting people started, that's perfectly fine. People who are helping other people getting started, it's perfectly fine. But when it actually comes to trying to learn, try and find a good, credible, skilled source, which is typically deaf signers who have been using it their whole lives. That is the best source you will find. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay. Got time for a little bit more. Any other questions? Anything else you want me to rant about? Yes. I have no idea how to say that.
Yeah.
Mulat Kaknos.
Hello. Yeah, it's close. I wanted to ask about ASL poetry. How does it work? How does it look like?
Sorry, say that again. I don't know if I lagged. You wanted to ask about what?
ASL poetry.
Oh, ASL poetry. Okay.
Yeah.
So ASL poetry is like, I'm not qualified to really teach about that because I'm not a poet at all. Like, I'm not a person who can do that. There are so many people who do it. It is really, really cool when you see it. There are some amazing YouTube videos. There is also this other thing that's not really poetry, but it's still visual. Like, so ASL poetry most of the time is very visual. Like, that's the point. Is it's not about the words and the signs, it's about the visual that you get from it. Most of the time. And again, it's poetry. It's open to interpretation. There's another like field of like performance ASL called visual vernacular. And that is very, very fascinating to watch. I will try and quickly find, after class, I will try and find a video of a visual vernacular and an ASL poetry that I love, and I will post them in media, and I will specifically tag you so you can see it. Anybody else willing to look, like, they're really, really cool videos, but I will do that for you because I can't really teach about that, but it is so cool to watch. It is very much visual, and it has its own everything. It's so cool. Okay. Probably got time for one more question. Anybody else? Anybody? Nope. Nimsy. Sure. Okay. So let's kind of go back to Okay. So Nimsy asked me if I can show about how ASL is a visual language. So ASL is a very visual language. So whenever you have kind of the PSE versus ASL thing, when you have PSE, Nimsy's example was I went across the bridge. So if I'm going to PSE it, I'm going to say I went across the bridge. I have each word, I have an order, it's very, very English. I went across the bridge. If I'm going to ASL it, I'm going to say here's the bridge, and I walked across it. I am setting up that this is the bridge, which my elbow is actually here in real life, just so you know. This is a classifier, or it's also a descripting verb. There's like the linguistics side of ASL is like changing the name of it. I learned it as a classifier, but now they're saying it's a descripting verb. Anyway, this is a descripting verb for a person. And then I'm showing what they did. I don't say the word walk. I don't say go. I just say, oh, bridge. They walked across it. They jumped off it. They went halfway across it, turned around, and went back. I'm never saying the words. I am showing what happened. ASL is very much like, again, I'm going back to school because, again, I work in a school. Like, my English teachers would always say, like, show, don't tell. ASL is exactly that. You show it, you don't tell it. You show what happens. You paint a picture of what's going on. As a complete nerd aside here, I love playing Dungeons and Dragons with deaf people because whenever, like, I've had amazing DMs before. I try and be a good DM with my descriptions. When I'm playing with deaf people, whenever they're DMing, oh my god, I feel like I'm there. Just because of how visual it is, and you can feel that you're there, and everything it's showing, not telling. It's amazing. So that's another thing to be mindful of when you're trying to learn ASL is think about the concepts, try and like paint a picture of what's happening, not just saying the words. And that's a whole other lesson we can talk about with classifiers. Whenever DM, who has been on like break for a while, he said he's going to be coming back soon. When he's back, I actually kind of want to collaborate with him a little bit about what kinds of lessons he's teaching. I might be like, hey, can we like collaborate about a classifier lesson? Because that might help. So, all right, okay. Well, it is 5 o'clock my time. It's been an hour since I posted the link. So I'm going to say we are done. We are good. We're going to take a picture and we're going to get on out of here. So if you don't mind, let's get the picture mode active.